My husband served me birthday wine. Switching our glass saved my life. I still remember the smell, not the sweet, fruity scent you expect from a glass of wine. No, the smell that drifted up from that glass on my birthday felt wrong, sharp, chemical, almost sour. And if I hadn't trusted that tiny voice inside me, if I hadn't switched our glasses, pretending it was nothing, I wouldn't be here, telling you this story today, because my husband, the man I shared 20 years a home and a son with, served me something that was never meant to let me wake up again, and Lord knows, I wish that sentence wasn't true. I guess I should start from the beginning, because nobody gets married thinking their partner will one day try to take their life. Nobody looks at the father of their child and imagines he's capable of such a thing. But life has a way of showing you truths you were never ready to see. My name is Lillian. I live in a quiet little town in South Carolina. The kind where you hear church bells on Sunday and neighbors bring over casseroles. When someone gets sick, 4 years, I thought I had the perfect, peaceful life. My husband, David, worked in insurance. I worked part-time at a floral shop. We weren't rich, but we were steady. Our son, Michael, was starting college. And I thought we were entering that gentle season of life. The one where nights got quiet but hearts stayed full. I was wrong. I think the unraveling started about 2 years before my birthday, subtle little things that didn't make sense until much later. David became colder, not cruel, just absent. Like his body was home, but his mind belonged somewhere else. He used to kiss me on the forehead every night before bed. One day, he just stopped. He used to hum while making his morning coffee. That went away too. He started guarding his phone like it held state secrets. And I kept telling myself it was work stress, that men went through phases, that marriages didn't always feel like fairy tales. I held on, because that's what women like me do. We hold on until our hands bleed. But the night of my birthday, that was the night everything fell out of God's hands and right into the truth. It was a quiet evening, nothing big planned. Michael had sent me a sweet video from college, promising he'd come home the next week to celebrate properly. I had baked myself a small cake earlier because I didn't want to ask anyone to. I'd stopped expecting things from David. That's how life trains you when disappointment becomes routine. Around 8 p.m., David came home holding a small gift bag and a bottle of wine. Figured we could celebrate, he said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. I remember feeling surprised, almost grateful, because he hadn't planned anything for my birthday and yours. He sat me at the dining table, lit a candle and poured the wine. 2 glasses. A simple gesture, but one that made something in my chest soften for a moment. Maybe we were healing. I thought. Maybe we were finding our way back. He handed me my glass. To 20 years with the most patient woman on earth, he said. His voice wavered, not with emotion, but something else. Something like hesitation. I lifted the glass, and that's when the smell hit me. At first I thought maybe I was imagining it. Maybe the floral shop chemicals clung to my nose. But when I lowered it and smelled again, that sour, metallic scent was still there. Not wine. Not anything I'd ever tasted in my life. I looked up at him. He was watching me. Not lovingly, but intensely. Like he was waiting for something. My gut twisted. That deep, primal, feminine instinct passed down from mothers and grandmothers and God himself. The instinct that whispers when danger walks into the room wearing familiar shoes. I smiled, pretending not to notice, and said, "Switch glasses with me, sweetheart. Yours looks fuller." I even laughed lightly, making it sound innocent. He froze. Just a second. Just long enough. Then he tried to play it off. No, that one's yours," he said, pushing it back toward me, but I insisted. "It's my birthday. Humor me." I don't know where the courage came from. Maybe from 20 years of knowing his expressions, his tics, his lies before he spoke them. He hesitated. Again. Something dark flickered across his face. Something I had never seen before, but I didn't let the moment pass. I pushed my glass toward him gently, almost teasing. "Come on now. Don't make me fight you on my birthday." For a second, I thought he'd refuse. I thought he'd get angry. I thought he'd storm off and reveal everything right there. But instead, he exhaled. Long, heavy, and he switched. He brought the glass to his lips. And right before he took that first sip, his hand trembled, just slightly. But I saw it. Then he drank one gulp, two. His eyes widened. His jaw tightened. His breathing faltered, and that's when I knew. This wasn't wine. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't a bad bottle or a spoiled batch. My husband had poured me poison. And now it was inside him. He dropped the glass. It shattered across the hardwood floor. Lillian. He choked out. His face went pale, not white, but gray. His body swayed. I stood frozen, my mind spinning. The man who had vowed to protect me had just tried to end my life. And as he collapsed onto the floor, clutching his stomach, gasping for air, something inside me broke forever. David collapsed so fast I barely had time to breathe. One moment he was standing there, eyes wide and glass shattered at his feet. The next, he was on his knees, clutching his throat like the air was being stolen from him, one desperate gasp at a time. Lillian. He choked again, reaching toward me. I stepped back, not out of cruelty, not out of fear of him, but out of shock so deep my knees nearly buckled. What do you do when the man you've shared a home, a son, and 2 decades of memories with tries to kill you? What do you do when the person you trusted with your whole life becomes a very reason you might lose it? I should have called 911 right away. I should have run for help. I should have done the right thing without thinking, but I didn't. Because I froze, trapped between instinct, heartbreak, disbelief, and something that felt like betrayal poisoning me from the inside. He fell fully to the floor, gasping and shaking. The sound was awful, like a man drowning on dry land. And then, as he writhed, a horrifying realization hit me. Whatever he put in my glass, it was working fast, way too fast. Not like alcohol, not like spoiled wine, not like something he didn't know about. No, this was something planned, something intentional, something designed to make sure I didn't see another sunrise. I stumbled backward, my hand covering my mouth. I felt cold all over, but not from fear, from grief, from the kind of heartbreak that doesn't feel like a crack, but like a shattering. This man was supposed to grow old with me. He was supposed to sit with me on a porch swing someday, watching our grandkids run across the lawn. He was supposed to be my safety. But instead, here he was, on our dining room floor, dying by his own plan. He tried to speak again, wheezing, "Help me." That's when something snapped inside me. Not hatred, not revenge, just truth. "Why, David?" My voice broke. "Why would you do this to me?" He blinked hard, like he couldn't process my question through the pain ripping through him. I knelt beside him, not close, just near enough to hear him struggle for breath. "Why did you try to poison me?" I whispered. He didn't answer. He couldn't, probably. His body was becoming stiff, his breath short and ragged. A tear dropped down his cheek. Not remorse. It didn't look like that. It looked like fear. But fear of what? Dying. Or fear that his plan had failed. He tried to lift a hand, but it fell back down. I forced myself to look at him. Really look. This was a man I used to laugh with under Christmas lights. A man I once waited up for late at night when he worked overtime. A man who held my hand when Michael was born. And now he was a man who tried to end my life. The weight of that truth was almost enough to crush me. After a few agonizing seconds, I grabbed my phone with trembling hands and dialed 911. My voice was shaking as I said, "My husband, he collapsed. He's not breathing well. Please hurry." The operator asked if he'd taken anything. My eyes drifted to the shattered wine glass, the dark red liquid spreading across the floor, the bottle still sitting on the table. I think he drank something," I whispered. I don't know what, a lie, but I wasn't ready to tell the truth. Not yet. Not until I understood. The ambulance arrived so fast it felt like only seconds passed. The paramedics rushed in, checked his pulse, looked at the bottle, and exchanged glances I didn't miss. One of them pulled me aside. "Ma'am, do you know what he ingested?" I shook my head, my voice barely a breath. It was supposed to be wine. He poured it. They didn't say anything, but their eyes said enough. Something was wrong. Terribly wrong. They stabilized him as best they could and rushed him to the ambulance. Before they closed the doors, one paramedic asked, "Do you want to ride with him?" I stared at David. His face was pale. His lips had turned bluish. His eyes were half open, but empty, like he wasn't fully there anymore. I didn't know if he would live. and I didn't know how I felt about that. I swallowed hard. Yes, I'm coming. The ride to the hospital felt like a dream. One of those slow-motion nightmares where you're aware of everything and nothing at the same time. The paramedic beside me kept glancing at the monitors, tightening his jaw. At one point, he muttered under his breath, thinking I couldn't hear. Poison, fast-acting. My heart dropped. Poison. The word felt like a slap across my face. I stared at David, tears welling in my eyes. What did you do to me? I whispered again, though he couldn't hear. When we arrived, they rushed him into a trauma room while a nurse guided me to a waiting area. She tried to speak kindly. We're doing everything we can, I nodded. But I felt numb, like my spirit had floated somewhere far above my body, trying to escape everything happening. I sat there alone, the hospital lights buzzing above me, the antiseptic smell sharp in my nose. My phone buzzed, a message from Michael. Love you, Mom. Did Dad take you somewhere nice for your birthday? I stared at the message until tears blurred my vision. How do you tell your child that his father tried to kill his mother? How do you tell that the man he admires, the man he calls on for advice, the man who helped him move into his dorm, might have left their home tonight with murder in his heart? I wiped my tears and texted back, love you too, sweetheart. I'll call you in the morning. I didn't trust myself to say more. Minutes passed, then an hour, then another. Finally, a doctor approached me, a tall man with tired eyes. Mrs. Harper? I stood up so fast I nearly stumbled. Yes, that's me. He sighed. Your husband is alive, but in critical condition. We stabilized him. But whatever he ingested was extremely toxic. I nodded slowly, my stomach sinking. Then he asked the question that made my blood run cold. Do you know why he would have taken something like that? My lips parted, but no words came out. Because how could I tell a stranger that he hadn't taken it by accident? He had meant it for me. I opened my mouth to speak, but then I saw something over the doctor's shoulder. A police officer walking toward us. His uniform crisp, his expression serious. And my heart dropped straight into my stomach, because deep inside, I already knew. This was far from over. This was only the beginning. The police officer walked toward me with that slow, deliberate kind of stride that tells you he already knows something you don't, something you're not ready to hear. He stopped a few feet in front of me and removed his hat, holding it respectfully against his chest. Ma'am, he said gently, I understand you're Mrs. Harper? I nodded, though my throat felt tight. Yes, I'm Lillian. I'm Officer Daniels. He glanced toward the trauma room where David lay unconscious. I need to ask you a few questions about what happened tonight. My heart started racing. Questions? Of course. Because you don't just collapse from poison in your own dining room without raising suspicions. But I wasn't ready, not emotionally, not mentally, not spiritually. Still, I swallowed hard. Okay, ask whatever you need. He opened a small notebook. Was anyone else home when your husband collapsed? No, it was just the two of us. Did you both drink from the same bottle? A pause, a long one. I stared down at my hands. They were shaking. I interlocked my fingers to hide it. Yes, I whispered. He poured the wine for us, and did you drink any? My eyes stung. I didn't. I took a shaky breath. I switched glasses with him before drinking. Officer Daniels' gaze sharp and not accusing, but alert. Why did you switch glasses, ma'am? That question felt like a hand squeezing my lungs. Because the real truth was almost impossible to say aloud. Because I swallowed hard. Because the wine he gave me smelled strange. His eyebrows lifted. Strange how? Chemical, sour, wrong. I paused. Not like wine at all. He nodded slowly, writing something down. Then he lowered his voice. Did your husband seem nervous, anxious? Off in any way before drinking? That question made tears prick the back of my eyes. Yes, I whispered. He watched me too closely, like he was waiting for me to drink. Officer Daniel stopped writing. He looked up at me with a heavy, knowing expression. Mrs. Harper, are you trying to tell me your husband may have intentionally poisoned you? The words, the awful, painful, damning words, hung in the air like smoke from a house fire. My chest clenched. I don't want to believe it, I whispered, shaking my head as tears slid down my face. I never imagined something like this could even be possible. But yes, I think he meant it for me. Daniels closed his notebook slowly. Thank you for being honest, he said gently. I know this is incredibly painful. Painful wasn't the word. It was like watching my entire marriage crumble into dust in front of my eyes. He continued. We have already secured the wine bottle from your home. It appears tampered with. We've sent it to the lab for testing. My breath caught. Tampered? Poisoned? Deliberate. This wasn't some spur-of-the-moment breakdown. This was planned, prepared, executed. The room seemed to tilt slightly. Ma'am, he added softly. Until we know more, I need you to stay available for questioning. And you won't be able to see your husband tonight. I nodded numbly. Part of me didn't want to see him. Part of me wanted to shake him awake and scream, "WHY? Why would you do this to me?" But another part, a very old, very tired part, just wanted to go home and sit in silence. The officer walked away to speak with the doctor. I slumped into the nearest chair and buried my face in my hands. Why, David? Why me? Why on my birthday? Why after 20 years? But even as I cried, I felt something else stirring in my chest, something I didn't expect. Anger. 4 years, I had excused his coldness, his distance, his secrets. I had told myself he was stressed, tired, overwhelmed. I never told myself the truth. He had stopped loving me long before this night. He had stepped out of our marriage emotionally. He had become a stranger under my own roof. Now he had taken that final step, a step from neglect into danger, a step from silence into violence, a step from secrets into sin. At that moment, my phone vibrated again, a message from an unknown number. I frowned and opened it. You weren't supposed to drink it. He promised me it would be done tonight. My blood ran cold. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding so hard I thought my ribs might crack. Another message came instantly. Tell David I'm done waiting. My entire body went numb. This wasn't random. This wasn't some mental break. This wasn't a husband snapping under pressure. This was an affair. A woman, a plan. A conspiracy. My hands trembled so violently I dropped my phone. It clattered onto the tile floor. A nurse rushed over. Ma'am, are you all right? I couldn't speak. I couldn't breathe. Because suddenly every cold night, every late shift, every guarded phone call made perfect sense. David wasn't overworked. He wasn't distant from stress. He wasn't tired or depressed. He was cheating. And he was trying to replace me. The poison wasn't just about getting rid of me. It was about clearing a path for someone else. My knees gave out. I sank to the floor, gripping the fabric of my sweater like it could hold me together. The nurse knelt beside me. What happened? Are you hurting? I shook my head weakly. My husband had someone else. A tear slid down my cheek. And they both wanted me gone. The nurse's face softened with horror and sympathy. Oh, honey, she whispered. But I barely heard her. Because the truth was crashing over me like a tidal wave. David didn't just try to kill me. He tried to erase me, so he could build a new life with a woman who was waiting for my death like it was some kind of appointment. I wiped my face with trembling hands. No more tears. Not tonight. I stood up slowly, painfully, like someone twice my age. I had spent 20 years loving a man who had spent months planning my funeral. And as I stared through the hospital window at the dark, quiet parking lot outside, something changed deep inside me. This wasn't going to end with me broken. This wasn't going to end with me silent. This wasn't going to end with me walking away while he walked free. No. I was going to get answers. I was going to uncover every lie, every secret, every betrayal, and by the time I was done, David would regret the day he ever tried to hand me that poison glass. I didn't sleep that night. Not a minute, not a second. I sat in that cold hospital waiting room with my arms wrapped around myself, staring at the floor tiles like they held the answer to every question, breaking my heart. David was lying unconscious in the trauma unit, fighting for his life after drinking the poison meant for me. And the woman he was cheating with, the woman who was waiting for me to die, was texting my phone. Like this was some planned transaction. Like my life had been penciled into someone else's calendar. I kept replaying the messages in my mind. You weren't supposed to drink it. He promised me it would be done tonight. Tell David I'm done waiting. Every word cut deeper than the last. I wasn't just betrayed. I was hunted, targeted, disposable. And I couldn't help but ask myself, how many nights had they planned this? How many whispered phone calls ended with promises of my death? How many times had I kissed David goodnight while he was plotting the end of my life? The police officer, Officer Daniels, came back around on. His coffee was still steaming, and he looked at me with a mix of sympathy and seriousness. "Mrs. Harper," he said softly, "I need to ask if you know anyone who might have a connection to your husband's situation." I stared at him. "A connection?" He nodded. "Anyone who could benefit financially? Anyone he's been involved with emotionally? Anyone who might have encouraged him?" I almost laughed a bitter, dry, humorless sound. Encouraged him. Lord, some woman practically drew him a map. I held out my phone with shaking hands. I think you need to see these." He read the messages. His eyes hardened instantly, the softness vanishing. "Mrs. Harper, this is substantial evidence." He looked at me. "Do you know who sent this?" "I don't know the number," I whispered. "But I know this wasn't random." He exhaled slowly. "Do you believe your husband was having an affair?" That question should have felt like a knife. But by then, the wound was already too deep to hurt more. "Yes," I whispered. "I believe he was." Officer Daniel sat down beside me. Double quotes, "Mrs. Harper, I know this is painful, but we're going to need access to his phone, financial accounts, and possibly his work records. There may be more to this than we realize. More? More than poisoning me on my birthday? More than texting his lover that the job was done?" "Still," I nodded numbly, "I'll cooperate. Whatever you need." He paused, studying me carefully. "Ma'am, you're not obligated to protect him anymore." That sentence hit me harder than all the rest. Because he was right. I had spent years protecting David, his reputation, his pride, his fragile ego, his coldness, even his distance. I had defended him to friends when his behavior didn't make sense. I had blamed myself when our marriage felt empty. But now I owed him nothing. When Officer Daniels left, I finally allowed myself to breathe. Not freely, not fully, but enough to think clearly for the first time in hours. I changed into fresh clothes the hospital provided, splashed water on my face, and walked outside as the first pale light of dawn crept over the parking lot. The air was cool, the sky quiet. The world didn't know my life had shattered overnight. But there was something else in my chest now, something burning, something fierce, not hatred, not revenge, but truth-seeking, a calm, strong resolve to uncover everything that had been stolen from me, one lie at a time. When I got home, the house looked different. Not physically, just emotionally. The walls felt colder. The kitchen felt unfriendly. The dining room table where he handed me that poison glass felt haunted. I walked slowly to the table, looking at the empty spot where the wine glass had shattered. I touched the wood gently, as if it were bruised. Then I saw the wine bottle, still sitting in the evidence bag the officers had left on the counter. Dark, silent, harmless looking. A simple bottle that had almost become my tombstone. I sat down at the table, laid my hands flat, and forced myself to remember every detail leading up to yesterday. David's sudden interest in date nights, his late evenings of work, his phone turning face down every time he got a message, his sudden burst of sweetness after weeks of coldness. He wasn't reconnecting. He was covering his tracks. My phone buzzed again, this time a voicemail. Not a text, unknown number. My stomach twisted. I pressed play. A woman's voice filled the room. Soft, young, breathy, and dripping with entitlement. "David, it's me. I heard what happened. You better not back out of this. I waited for you all night. You told me she'd be gone by now. Call me when you wake up." When? Not if. This woman expected him to survive. Expected him to finish what he started. Expected my death like it was a delayed appointment. My hands curled into fists. Who was she? What did David promise her? And why was she so confident in the plan? I replayed the voicemail 3 times, memorizing every breath, every tone. Then I dialed the number back. It rang once, twice, 3 times, and then she answered. "David, baby?" The way she said baby made something cold settle in my spine. I took a deep breath. "No," I said quietly. "It's Lillian." There was a long, stunned silence. I could almost hear her heartbeat spike through the phone. Then she whispered, "You weren't supposed to pick up." I leaned back in my chair, voice steady, sharp as a blade. "And I wasn't supposed to survive." Another silence. Then a soft, nervous laugh. "You don't understand. David told me you two were practically over. He said you were miserable, that you'd be happier gone. He said. I cut her off. My voice dropped low, calm, deadly clear. What's your name? She hesitated. What do you want? She asked instead. I want the truth, I said. All of it. And you're going to give it to me. She scoffed lightly, but I could hear the shakiness. You're not getting anything from me. David will explain everything when he wakes up from drinking the poison meant for me. I snapped. Silence. Sharp, brittle, cutting. She hadn't known. I could hear it even in the quiet. She hadn't expected David to drink it. She hadn't expected the plan to fail. She hadn't expected me to still have a voice. Then her tone changed, cold, almost trembling. You're lying. If I were lying, I said softly, you wouldn't sound so scared. Another breath. Shallow, unsteady. What do you want from me? She finally whispered. I want to know how long this has been going on, I said, and why you'd have thought my life was something you could erase. There was a long moment where she said nothing. Then she whispered something that chilled me to the bone. You should ask him about the insurance. That was David's job. He dealt with life policies every day. And suddenly, every puzzle piece snapped brutally into place. He'd been distant for months, strange for weeks, desperate for days, because someone, maybe this woman, maybe someone else, had convinced him there was more to gain from my death than my life. I clenched my jaw. Who are you? I asked again, but she ended the call, just like that. I stared at my phone long after the screen went black. Insurance, the affair, the poison, the lies. This wasn't just betrayal. This was premeditation, and I wasn't done uncovering things. Not by a long shot. I stood in the middle of my kitchen long after the mystery woman hung up, staring at my silent phone like it was a loaded weapon. Because in a way, it was. Every ringtone, every message, every voicemail felt like a new blow to the chest. Every secret I uncovered felt like another piece of my marriage crumbling at my feet. And now there was that one terrible word burning in my mind like fire: insurance. That was David's world. His job, his specialty, his weapon. He knew every loophole, every payout structure, every clause. He had spent years explaining to clients how to provide for their families. And all the while, he had quietly built a plan to destroy his own. I walked into our bedroom, the place where we once whispered dreams into the darkness, the place where we shared warmth and secrets and laughter. Now it felt cold, hollow, almost hostile. His phone sat on the dresser, plugged into the charger. The police hadn't taken it yet. They told me they'd collect it later for evidence. But right then, I didn't care about procedures or waiting or proper channels. I needed answers. I needed truth. I needed to know how long I had been living in a house full of lies. My hands shook as I reached for his phone. It was locked, of course. A simple 4-digit code. But I knew my husband. Knew him deeply, painfully, intimately. His password wasn't a mystery. It was the same code he used for everything. Those four little numbers he swore were just easy to remember. I typed them in. The screen unlocked instantly. A wave of nausea rolled through me. Because the moment his digital world opened up, I knew I was about to see things I could never unsee. Truths I could never forget. Wounds I would never fully heal. But I opened everything anyway. The first thing I checked was his messages. There she was. Her name saved under something pathetic and predictable. Alicia Work. He actually had the audacity to hide her in plain sight. When I opened their message thread, the breath left my body all at once. Their conversation went back 11 months, almost a year of late-night texts, stolen weekends, whispered "I miss you" messages, cheap hotel receipts, explicit photos I refused to look at, and plans. Plans about me. My hands trembled as I scrolled. Alicia, did you talk to her yet? She looks healthy. Are you sure it won't show on the toxicology report? You promised she'd be gone before spring. I covered my mouth, horrified. Gone before spring. Like I was a chore on a list. A task to complete. A problem to solve. Further down. David, it has to look natural. She can't suffer. I just need her out of the way. We'll finally have a fresh start. A fresh start. He was planning a new life with her. A life that required my death. My eyes burned with tears. My skin felt too tight. My heart felt too heavy. But I kept reading. Alicia, don't chicken out on your birthday. You know the insurance payout is highest if it's accidental insurance. There it was again. I scrolled faster, my pulse pounding in my ears. David, it'll be fine. She'll be drinking. It'll pass as alcohol poisoning. I've done everything exactly like you said. Just keep your phone on. I'll text you after. My breath caught and I sank onto the edge of the bed. He didn't just plan this. He rehearsed it, justified it, wrote it out like a grocery list. It was premeditated in the purest, coldest way possible. Finally, I reached the messages from the night of my birthday. Alicia, is it done? She should have taken the first sip already. Why haven't you texted me back? I'm waiting, David. Then at 9:40 for p.m. Alicia, don't scare me. You promised nothing would go wrong. And finally, Alicia, she better be gone. I dropped the phone. It bounced off the bedspread and landed on the floor with a soft thud. Gone. The word echoed in my mind like thunder. Gone. Like I was trash. Like I was an obstacle. Like I was in their way. Gone. After 20 years of love, struggle, sacrifice, and forgiveness. Gone. So he could run off with a younger woman and some insurance payout like cowards escaping a life. They built on lies. I pressed my palms against my eyes, tears spilling between my fingers. There's a special kind of pain reserved for betrayal, a deep, broken ache that sits behind your ribs and makes it hard to breathe. I felt all of it, every ounce. But then something else rose inside me. Something fierce. Something powerful. Not rage. Not revenge. Not hatred. But clarity. Pure, burning clarity. This wasn't just a broken marriage. This was attempted murder. This was conspiracy. This was a crime planned by two people who saw me not as a human being, not as a mother, not as a wife, but as a payout. I stood up slowly, steady, resolute, and I said out loud, in a voice that didn't sound like mine anymore, "This ends now." I picked David's phone off the floor, brought it into the kitchen, laid it gently beside the wine bottle and the evidence bag. Then I called Officer Daniels. He answered on the second ring. "Mrs. Harper, is everything all right?" "Officer," I whispered, my voice shaking but firm, "you need to come back." He paused. "Did something happen?" "Yes," I said. "Yes, something happened." I looked at the phone, at the messages, at the shattered illusion of the man I thought I knew. I found everything. Another pause. He understood without needing details. "I'm on my way." When I hung up, I felt a sense of calm wash over me. Not relief, not safety, not victory. Just calm, because I finally understood something deep, painful, and freeing. David never loved me more than he loved his own selfish desires. He didn't value our marriage. He didn't value our family. He didn't value my life. But I valued it, and I wasn't going to let him take it from me. Not yesterday. Not today. Not ever. As I waited for the police to arrive, I whispered a prayer, not for David, not for Alicia, but for myself, for strength, for wisdom, for courage, because the final chapter of this nightmare was coming, and I intended to survive it. By the time Officer Daniels returned to my house, the sky had begun to brighten with that soft, early morning light that makes the world look almost innocent, almost peaceful. But my home was far from peaceful. It smelled faintly of burnt coffee from the night before, antiseptic from the hospital, and that lingering scent of broken trust I'd carry for the rest of my life. I led him directly to David's phone and the wine bottle, still sitting quietly on the counter like silent witnesses. I showed him every message, every voicemail, every planning note Alicia had sent. I could feel my pulse pounding in my ears, my chest tight with fear, grief, and a strange, fiery determination. Officer Daniels didn't need to say much. His eyes grew hard, calculating. "Mrs. Harper, you've given us everything we need," he said firmly. "This is evidence of attempted murder and conspiracy." I swallowed hard, forcing myself to keep my voice steady. "They tried to plan my death," I whispered. "My husband with her help. All because of insurance. And her?" He nodded gravely. "We'll get statements, check his financials, and coordinate with the district attorney. But this is enough to get him arrested when he's discharged from the hospital." I felt a flicker of vindication, a small ember of relief. Not enough to erase the betrayal, but enough to make me feel alive. Like maybe justice wasn't entirely lost. Meanwhile, David remained in the hospital, unconscious but stable. By the afternoon, the news of his poisoning attempt reached the local police precinct, and an officer arrived with a formal notice for temporary detention pending investigation. I had mixed emotions, relief that he couldn't act again, shame for the man I once loved, and a strange sense of sorrow for the life I thought we had built together. When David finally woke, he looked around the sterile hospital room, eyes bleary and unfocused. I was there, sitting a few feet away, arms crossed, heart hammering. I didn't rush to him. I didn't cry. I didn't even speak. He blinked slowly and tried to smile, weak, frightened, guilty. But I didn't give him the satisfaction of my tears or my sympathy. Not now, not ever, Lillian. He whispered, voice trembling, hoarse. I didn't mean. I held up a hand. Save it, I said softly, but the words were sharp, like a blade cutting through the remnants of our life together. You tried to kill me. His lips parted. No words came, because even he knew nothing could undo that truth. I continued, voice low but firm. And now, you're going to face the consequences. The police have everything, your messages, your planning, your conspiracy. You're not going anywhere until this is over. He stared at me, fear washing over him. I couldn't help but feel a strange satisfaction, not joy, exactly, but a deep, moral vindication. After all these years, after 20 years of loyalty, love, patience, and forgiveness, justice was finally going to be served out in the days that followed. The investigation unfolded like a horror movie I could never have imagined. Alicia was located. Her smug confidence had vanished, replaced by panic when officers arrived to question her. Every lie she tried to spin unraveled under evidence and confrontation. Every detail David had meticulously planned to hide crumbled before the truth. David, of course, faced formal charges, attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and insurance fraud. The court case was intense, with shocking revelations pouring out daily. All the planning he'd done, all the lies he told, all the ways he tried to cover his betrayal with charm and excuses. I sat in the courtroom each day, my heart a mixture of grief and fierce empowerment. The man who had tried to end my life was finally being held accountable, and for the first time in months, I felt my soul breathe. But the real victory wasn't in watching him arrested or in seeing him stripped of his freedom. The real victory was reclaiming my life, my voice, my sense of safety, my sense of self-worth. I returned to our home slowly, step by step, room by room. The walls no longer felt like they were closing in on me. The dining room table, once the scene of betrayal, now stood quietly, empty, neutral mine. I cleaned. I organized. I reclaimed. Not because it erased the past, but because it marked a future I would build for myself. One I controlled. Michael came home after hearing the news. We embraced long and tight, holding each other like two pieces of fragile glass. I explained as much as I could, age-appropriate truths, and he cried. Not just for what had happened to me, but for the father he once admired. Now revealed as someone capable of betrayal beyond comprehension, we grieved together. We healed together. And slowly, we began building something new. Months passed. David's trial concluded. The jury found him guilty on all counts. The sentence was harsh but fair, life-altering, just as his actions had intended to be for me. I didn't feel joy at his punishment. I felt relief, and something stronger, freedom. I allowed myself to breathe finally without fear, to laugh without guilt, to plan without worrying if someone was plotting behind my back, to exist without the shadow of betrayal darkening every thought. Looking back, I realized something profound. The tiny, instinctive decision to switch glasses at night saved my life. A simple act of self-preservation, born from intuition, born from awareness, prevented tragedy. And it reminds me now that even in the darkest moments, even when betrayal and danger walk quietly behind familiar doors, survival is possible. Empowerment is possible. Truth and justice are possible. I share this story not to dwell in anger, not to seek sympathy, but to offer this. Trust your instincts. Protect yourself. And never, ever allow anyone to diminish your worth or plan your destruction. Life is fragile. But strength is something we choose. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories like this. And always remember, your life is yours to protect. Your voice is yours to use. And no one has the right to take that away.